Hi, good morning, people. This video is called The Worst of Both Worlds. Now, the reason why this is called this is because this is a deliberate fuck you to the people who have been saying for the longest time that being half Asian is the best of both worlds. Now, I really want you to think about this for a second. Asian women are the only race of women on the planet who are obsessed at a core level with having half Asian babies. They are the only women who date out at such a monumental rate, at least 40 or 50%. The actual statistics from online dating websites show that Asian women exclude their own men at up to rates of 40%. Now, you would say, oh, this is excusable, or those dating statistics aren't actually representative of any kind of actual meaningful relevance or anything like that. And I'm sure there's going to be many half Asians that are watching this video and are going to be talking about, oh, my parents weren't like that, my parents just fell in love. So you want to tell me right now that the majority of all the hoppers that you know have white fathers and Asian mothers, and a very slim minority of them have Asian fathers and white mothers, and you know this is true, and you want to tell me this is coincidental, especially when you're walking down the street in any given city in America or even in Asia, and the only thing you'll see is white men and Asian women. This is clearly indicative of the fact that obviously being an Asian male is a bad thing. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. The fact that it's the fact that the vast majority of white people do not date out, and the vast majority of white women don't want anything to do with an Asian guy, and the fact that white society heavily looks down on men of color dating white women. Okay, I mean, all you have to do is you go find a black guy who dates a white woman and ask him what kind of experience he goes through, or go find an Asian guy who dates white women and ask him what kind of experience he goes through being stared at or harassed on the street. Okay, and then you want to tell me that Asian women, you want to tell me that it's not true that Asian women have a very high status in society where they can essentially just date out whenever the fuck they want. They can date white guys without any kind of social repercussion, and it's actually expected of them and approved of them to do this. Okay, I mean, you're gonna find very few people that are gonna disagree with the Asian woman white man, because Asian women are so highly sexualized in society. And even worse than that is that a lot of extremely racist, conservative, red-blooded white guys, Trump supporters, are the same guys that are seeking out Asian women because of the stereotype of Asian women being submissive, or Asian women being more like traditional. Okay, so it's not the best of both worlds. I'll give you this, it's probably the most average of both worlds, because pretty much any white guy can go to Asia and get a white woman. I would get an Asian woman. Okay, if you want to talk about best of both worlds, you should switch it around, because it's almost impossible for an Asian guy to get a white woman, and for him to do it, you're talking about the cream of the crop Asian guys. So in reality, the best of both worlds probably applies to the Asian father, white mother couples. For guys like me, for people like me, it's literally the worst of both worlds, and I'm going to tell you why. So now we're going to talk about, in my personal experience, and I know for a fact that I can't speak for everybody, but I can certainly speak for a hell of a lot of different people. And I mean, if you go online and you want to look at the kind of people that are talking about Asian girls, and I'm specifically referring to white men here, the guys that are interested in Asian girls, Jesus Christ, these kinds of guys are usually the fucking bottom of the barrel type guys. Okay, you cannot deny this. I mean, as much as you want to say, like, oh yeah, my dad wasn't one of these guys, I mean, I can go on any YouTube video and I can look through the comments. And I was just on one of these YouTube videos with 60,000 views on it, and then one of these girls was like, yeah, I can really relate to you because my father is this kind of guy that cries a lot and my mother views it as a weakness. I mean, really? Come on. I mean, you're talking about, this is like a fucking stereotype of the weak ass father and the domineering Asian mother. Come on, I lived that, man. I really did live that. I lived the mother that was beating the shit out of us, me and my brother. Okay, she was forcing my brother and me to beat the shit out of each other, using coat hangers and shit. Okay, she was pulling knives on all the children, and my father, because he was exactly the kind of guy that has like literally, you know, no control over anything. Okay, he's this very meek guy. He was just sitting back and just letting this happen. Okay, he's the kind of guy that has aversion to his own blood. You know what I mean? So like when he hurts himself or he's bleeding, he starts fucking fainting. He actually has fainted because of this. Now, I want to look at the other women in my family too. All of the men that are involved with the women in my family are like these really meek, sweaty man-childs. Like these guys, they can't stand up for themselves. And I mean, you want to look at the most famous example? Look at Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg has deliberately said, he said, and this is in the fucking movie. What is that movie? The movie about Facebook? I don't even remember the name of it. The movie about Facebook. And it was a joke in there. He's like, yeah, we're really obsessed with Asian women. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at all of his interviews, the guy's sweating everywhere, you know, he's incapable of looking at the camera. Okay, this is the type of guy that like Asian girls, because Asian girls are not more beautiful, man. Asian girls, the only reason guys like them is because they're easier if you are a white guy. That's the only appeal of them. There's no man on this planet who will look at a naked woman and say, oh, I'm not going to date her because she's not exactly my type. Having a racial fetish is indicative that you are not a normal straight man who has options. Okay, it means that you have to be picky because you have to go for your options. Okay, and you develop fetishes as a result of that. So then let me jump ahead here and then talk about the reason why Asian women like white men. Okay, anybody who is familiar with Asian culture, and I know a lot of hoppers here are very familiar with Asian culture, you know how obsessed Asian culture is with status, raising your status. Okay, and I mean white culture for the most part is if you are white in this world, all you have to do is put in a bare minimum effort. You know, you can have sex, party, and then go on and get a good job. But as an Asian person, you essentially just have to follow the rules. You have to go through the steps, get an education. And Asian culture is probably the only culture on earth where essentially your physical value is based on how non-Asian you look. So a lot of in my experience when I'm talking to Asian people, and especially the way my family treated me, is like they refer to the most beautiful Asians as the ones having the biggest eyes and the whitest skin and shit like that, you know. So there's this incredible like complex that is built into Asian culture on the whole, in which it's all about just raising your status. And women like my mother, yeah, obviously they're gonna seek out these tall white guys because that's what they feel like they deserve, you know. Asian women know they have high status within society, and what better way to maximize your potential as a woman than to get the maximum kind of guy that you can get. And that's why Asian women seem to love these tall, blue-eyed, blonde-haired white guys, because that is the American dream right there. That is, I mean, you want to live out your Audrey Hepburn fantasies and shit like that, you know, then what do? You go get yourself a tall white guy just like you see in the fucking movies. Okay, that's how this world works. Only problem with that is that when you have a kid, and it doesn't even matter, you can't even use me as an example. I'm 6 feet tall. Okay, I would consider myself average to above looking. Probably, I mean, even some people have described me as good looking. But I've had when you're starting to get into the upper echelons of society, the vast majority of white women do not want to be with a half Asian man. I mean, they can smell it on you. They can smell the fact that you're the son of an Asian woman, and they won't. I mean, they for some reason, like they can tell the stereotype. you know, of like the white MGTOW guy going his own way with an Asian woman. So my parents' marriage, a little bit about me. My parents' marriage was fundamentally broken from the beginning because my mother, her primary concern for finding a partner was finding a tall white guy. So when she arrived in the US, first guy that she found was this tall white guy, red haired, bearded, and you can see a lot of Asian girls love this type, tall, skinny white guys, okay? And then what happens was most white guys, I think most white guys, they prefer white women. Most white guys prefer white women. And most sensible white men, they know the stereotype of Asian women being obsessed with white guys, and they tend to avoid it, okay? They really tend to avoid it. Because it makes them feel uncomfortable. So the guys that do accept the advances of these types of women, they tend to be like, I don't know, like they tend to be not the best people, because the stereotype out there, if you Google Asian women on YouTube or on Google, first thing you're going to see is Asian women, white men. So the stereotype is that Asian women pretty much essentially right now in 2016, they essentially just belong to white guys, right? So the guys that are getting involved in these relationships, they know this stereotype and they feel perfectly okay being valued and used for their race. So that means that the types of guys are usually like these absolute pieces of shit who, one, some of these guys, they like having this power and they like talking shit about Asian guys. So whenever you see whenever you're online and you see white guys talking about Asian women, usually this is going hand in hand, fucking hand in hand, with insults about Asian guys' penises, shit like that, about the Asian guys being misogynist or too conservative, and there's always some excuse about how Asian men are undeserving of Asian women, and you can see this a lot, and a lot of these guys go on to raise half Asian kids. Don't use me as an example. My brother looks totally fucking Asian. He looks like 100% Asian. Okay, I look 50-50, and I had a hard enough time accepting who I was, because in my past I had been turned down for being half Asian, just on the knowledge alone that I was half Asian. Girls will say, oh, I only like white guys, and I say, what the fuck am I? You know, apparently I'm not, because of who I am, and I'm proud as fuck to be half Chinese, but who I am, I'm less, I always will be less according to the society that we live in. Do I look like a poor person? Look at this shit. Do I look like I'm fucking, I should be talking about this shit? I come from a very good background here. Okay, look at this. I mean, does this look like a cheap apartment? It's not. Alright, so the guys that are chasing after Asian women tend to be the worst picks of the white race, you know, or they tend to be very average people, because an average white guy, if he fails, if he can't get his premier blonde woman that he wants, or whatever the fuck he wants to get that white girl that he can marry and have a family with, he can have that white fucking picket fence, or out in Ohio or Idaho, where the fuck he wants to live. If he can't get that, what does he do? He starts over. He goes for the next best thing, which is an Asian woman. Yeah, right? So it's the average of both worlds. It ain't the best of both worlds, and in some cases, like my case, it's the worst of both worlds, because my dad is a different case entirely. My dad is like this super fucking conservative, racist guy who you know, he hates black people. He thinks the Holocaust never happened. He hates Jews. You know, he hates feminists. He's always ragging on feminists. He hates gays. He thinks gays burn in hell forever. You know, he thinks drug dealers should be hanged and shit like that. Like this extreme conservative. I'm talking about paleo fucking conservative. I'm not talking about run-of-the-mill conservative. I'm talking about extreme conservative. And to him, Asian culture, like Japanese culture in particular, has always been this kind of like this fantasy land of conservative Bushido fucking like samurai code, which isn't even reality, man. You know? So he married a Chinese woman. I don't know why, but he couldn't get a Japanese woman, I guess. He married a Chinese woman, and she was after him because she was one of these crazy fucking, you know, like status chasing, green card chasing women that, you know, they dye their hair color, wear blue contacts, because they really believe in their mind that only a white guy is good enough for them. And like, there's a mutual exchange here where they don't, neither party is really being honest about what they want, but they're both getting what they want. Like, the male gets the idea that he's in love, right, and the woman gets the whiter kids and whatever. And it's not best of both worlds, because my parents' marriage was fundamentally broken. It was just damaged from the beginning, because later on she saw that this guy, this tall white guy that she married, wasn't the kind of guy that white women wanted. He was this super conservative, like fucking paranoid, borderline Asperger's type guy, who had these extreme worldviews about how the world should be, and he was unable to cope with different shit in his life. And you know, he's such a conservative, like Jesus fearing type of guy, that he at one point he just like refused to work. You know, he refused to work because he felt like, you know, working is a sin. A rich man does not get into heaven. A rich man has a camel. What does the Bible quote? A camel has an easier time passing through the eye of a needle than a rich man does getting into heaven, right? So he was that type of guy. And then my mother, you know, she believed that the only thing you needed to be happy in life was to have a tall white guy on your side, at your side. And it turns out this tall white guy turned out to be a fucking loser, because these are the types of tall white guys that go for Asian women, right? I mean, most tall white guys are gonna be, you know, their first choice, like most normal people, their first choice is gonna be their own race. Black women prefer their own. You know, white women prefer their own. Latino women prefer their own, right? White men prefer their own. Asian men prefer their own. Latino men prefer their own, right? So only in certain cases, especially in the Asian woman case, is they're seeking out of their race more than anyone. So it's not the best of the Asian race going for the best of the white race. No, it's pretty much the average of the Asian race, because it's so stereotypical now that even your own average Asian woman is gonna have a preference for white guys. So it's the average. It's the average of both races coming together. Okay, it ain't the best of both worlds, and at very best, it's the average of both worlds. Okay, at very worst, it's the worst of both worlds in my case. So this is complete bullshit. Alright, so I think that should sum it up. I didn't write any of this down. I was just doing this off the top of my head in the morning. The reason why I'm wearing this mask is because I don't want to be identified, and also because I think it looks cool. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I like it. I mean, I think this Kylo Ren looks cool. And there's a joke going around that Kylo Ren himself is Hapa because of his relationship with Han Solo, his father. You know, he hated his father. I mean, Kylo Ren is not exactly mixed race, but you know, I guess he's half Jedi or whatever the fuck. Okay, so and yeah, one more thing. I know I said I was going to end it. This is kind of an addendum to this video. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm so disillusioned with the way that half Asian issues are going, and the way that this elephant in the fucking room is being ignored. I have a brother who looks fully Asian, and his life was almost completely different from mine. And yeah, I have suffered too. I have suffered from people don't understand. As soon as people find out you're half Asian, you can start getting treated like shit. They do, and people, you can't really tell from. I mean, people can tell that I'm half Asian, and they will never let you forget it, man. They will just bring you down in any way that they can, and the majority of white women do not want to. They might want to like slum it with you as a half Asian guy, but they will never fucking marry you. And as a half Asian, you know that your status is always going to be lower. I don't care how much you want to say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, sonny boy. It doesn't work like that in the real world. And this is another thing. White guys think that they can just use their own fucking white privilege logic to tell half Asian kids what to do. And this is what's creating more and more Elliot Rodgers, because what works for a white boy does not work for a half Asian guy. It does not. Alright? It does not. So every time I hear that, I want to vomit. Alright, my own father is always telling us that we should just, you know, like fucking do what a normal white guy would do, and we could have a happy life. My brother looks fully fucking Asian. Okay, I mean, there's just no chance in hell he's ever gonna get married or ever like lose his virginity or anything. So I can't even imagine some of these other hoppas out there, because they look fully Asian. I can't even imagine. And there's millions of these kids. Okay, because as I said, like, my father might be cream of the crop physically, you know, but the what happens more often is that the average looking white guys, balding, short, are the guys that are just fucking these average looking Asian girls, and what they're doing is creating very average looking happas, many of which who don't even look a tiny ounce of a bit different from a fully Asian man. Okay, and if you met me in person, you would definitely look at me and see that I can, I definitely look Asian. So, you know what? Best of both worlds. Fuck you. Okay. Really, I don't want to be an asshole, but this is what it is. Unless this world is willing to make amends and discuss this seriously, and discuss the racial imbalance and the power imbalance that makes white men and Asian women so common, you're looking forward to a lot of bad shit that's coming. Trust me on this. You don't want to have kids where I was 5-6 years ago, in the situation that I was, where you're so desperate, that you would do anything to survive. Alright, that's it. See you next time.